What's up everyone, this is Chris here. I'm gonna give you a quick review of my 2019 Santa Cruz Bronson. I've had this bike for about 3 months now, so I've had a good amount of time to kind of ride in different conditions. So like I mentioned, this is the 2019 Santa Cruz Bronson. I have the Carbon CC model in the X01 build. The only thing that I swapped out of the normal build kit is I added a Fox transfer post at a 125 millimeter. This bike comes with a 150 and it was too tall for me, and I like having a cable actuated dropper. It's just easier to fix and travel with. I also just recently put on these 2.5 Vigilante tires, front and back. I'm a little up in the air about these tires. I'm not sure how I feel about them. I've also added on a Trailbound Enduro strap to hold my tube, a little specialized water cage. You have to get the one that comes from the side because you can't pull from the top. I also opted for the Santa Cruz Reserve rims. I've never had carbon rims, so this is my first time on them and I like them. I think if I would have had aluminum rims on this bike already, I would have already dented them. Here's that new linkage that was on the Nomad and now is on the Bronson. Yeah, it feels great. This is that RockShox Deluxe shock. I do kind of wish I can get a coil, so I'll keep my eyes open for those when they come out. I know Santa Cruz recommends a air shock, but I'm sure a coil shock would be pretty awesome on this bike. All right, the last cool feature is I ordered an Avisi wrap. I think you can kind of see the seams here, but they're based out of the UK and they sell you custom wraps for your bike, so you can kind of have your whole bicycle protected. My old 5010, I actually cracked it here from a big rock, and so I think this plastic or this thick vinyl is going to help with impacts and just scratches in general. I really like it. It was super easy to install. So how does this bike ride? I'm coming from a Santa Cruz 5010, which was a light trail bike. I felt like it was like a 26-pound bike. This Bronson, even at a Carbon CC model, X01 build, carbon everything, it weighs at like 30 pounds. That was like the biggest thing I noticed jumping on this bike, was just how heavy it was. In return, going downhill, everything feels really stable and it really loves to go at speed. The faster you go on this bike, the more it comes alive. What I have noticed is that it's not as playful as my 5010. I was really worried about that when I got this bike. I was just gonna get another 5010. But I just wanted to try something new. And yes, it's not as playful as a 5010. You have to work a lot harder to kind of jib around and nibble. With that said, with the added suspension, you're able to jib on bigger things and link up lines that were not necessarily you're not able to do on 5010, but would have been a much harder and higher consequences. This bike, you kind of link up some pretty rad stuff and it just handles it no problem. You don't have to worry about it. How does this bike climb? When climbing trail, the bike really wants to stay to the ground and it stays high in its travel, so it has a lot of grip. I don't like climbing this bike on gravel roads. It doesn't have a lockout in the front shock, so standing up and kind of mashing on the pedals isn't really possible. It has a lock in the back, which helps. But for the most part, it feels like a tank climbing up gravel roads. But on trail, it feels great because it has so much grip that it just rolls over roots and steep technical climbs that I had a real hard time on the 5010. This one just holds to the ground and lets me get over those tricky moves. Another thing I wanted to say was that I bought this bike thinking that it was going to allow me to ride steeper and gnarlier terrain and have it feel easier, or have that terrain feel more comfortable. And what I've noticed is that going from the 5010 to the Bronson, riding harder and more technical terrain isn't necessarily easier, and I don't necessarily feel more safe on those steep trails that we have out here. You have to be on your A game, and yes, you have a little bit more suspension, but it's not going to make you a better rider and let you ride these trails that you wouldn't have on a 5010 or a 130 trail bike. If you can't ride that trail on a 130 bike, you're most likely not going to be able to ride it on a 160 bike. That's just my opinion. All right, I said I was gonna keep this quick, but I did want to mention one more thing. What I really do love about this bike, and probably from going from a 130 to a 160 bike, is that I can huck this bike to flat from as high as I want, as far away as I want, and the bike just lands so smooth. Everything feels so smooth, and I love that. I love being able to just connect lines on the trail and just huck it as far as I can and like try to go from one route to the next route and this bike just really allows me to connect lines that was much harder on a 5010. All right, so I think that's it for this quick review of my 2019 Bronson. If you have any questions, just leave a comment or send me an email or something like that.